Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a detailed look at what many analysts describe as one of the most pivotal turning points in modern European security, Ukraine's strategic masterstroke that effectively collapsed Vladimir Putin's plans. This video script walks through the reasoning, the developments, the miscalculations, and the consequences that reshape the course of the conflict. The paragraphs will stay short, direct, and conversational, just as you asked. Let's get started. From the very beginning of the full-scale invasion, the Kremlin envisioned a rapid, overwhelming campaign that would force Ukraine into submission. The expectation was that political leadership in Kyiv would flee, government institutions would collapse, and the population would be too intimidated or too divided to resist. But what happened instead surprised even seasoned observers of international conflict. Ukraine demonstrated readiness, discipline, and strategic clarity that radically altered the course of the war. One of the most important factors was the resilience of Ukraine's command structure. Unlike in previous conflicts where sudden attacks created chaos, Ukraine kept its leadership intact. The decision of President Zelensky to remain in Kyiv sent a powerful internal message. It signaled confidence, unity, and determination, which reinforced the country's defensive capabilities. This moment alone disrupted a major element of Moscow's early war calculation. At the same time, Ukraine executed a rapid and effective mobilization of its military and territorial defense forces. Volunteers poured in from every region, forming one of the most diverse civilian defense mobilizations seen in Europe in decades. This massive surge in manpower, combined with prepositioned defensive strategies, helped Ukraine to immediately deny Russia the swift victory it expected. The Kremlin's assumption that Ukraine would splinter turned out to be one of its most damaging miscalculations. Another crucial aspect of Ukraine's strategic success was its mastery of information warfare. Communications from Kyiv were consistent, transparent, and emotionally compelling. This created a clear contrast with Moscow's shifting narratives. Ukraine's ability to quickly share battlefield footage, document Russian losses, and communicate civilian suffering shaped global public opinion and galvanized international support. In an era where perception significantly influences political action, Ukraine's messaging strategy became a central military asset. International assistance grew rapidly as a result. Governments that initially expected a short conflict soon realized Ukraine was capable not only of resisting, but also of regaining territory. Western support grew in scale and sophistication, supplying Ukraine with advanced weaponry, intelligence, and economic backing. This was another turning point. Every new shipment enhanced Ukraine's ability to offset Russia's numerical advantages. One of the most decisive elements of Ukraine's strategy was its use of agility and precision rather than mass and brute force. The Ukrainian military avoided direct confrontation where Russia had overwhelming strength. Instead, they relied on mobility, flexibility, and superior coordination. Ukraine used smaller, faster units capable of striking quickly, disappearing, and then re-emerging in unexpected places. This turned the battlefield dynamics upside down. Ukrainian forces also excelled at exploiting Russian weaknesses. Logistics quickly became Russia's Achilles heel. Long, exposed supply lines made Russian columns vulnerable. Ukrainian units targeted fuel trucks, ammunition depots, and key transportation hubs. This starved Russian front lined troops of essential supplies and undermined morale. A modern mechanized army cannot operate without fuel and coordination, and Ukraine understood exactly how to choke those arteries at the right moments. Another strategic masterstroke was Ukraine's use of locally gathered intelligence. Civilians played a crucial role, reporting troop movements, identifying enemy positions, and feeding real-time information to the military. This grassroots intelligence network became one of the most effective tools Ukraine possessed. Russia, on the other hand, suffered from misinformation within its own ranks, poor coordination between units, and rigid command structures that made it difficult to adapt quickly. The Battle of Kyiv became the symbolic and strategic moment that shattered Putin's initial plan. Ukrainian defenders halted Russian advances, used the terrain effectively, and launched targeted counterattacks. Urban warfare favored Ukraine, whose forces knew the streets, buildings, and geography intimately. Russian troops, expecting minimal resistance, found themselves fighting highly motivated defenders who had already prepared defensive choke points. This failure forced Russia to withdraw from northern Ukraine entirely. That withdrawal destroyed the image of Russian military invincibility and signaled a profound shift in the strategic direction of the conflict. It also allowed Ukraine to demonstrate to its partners that victory was not only possible, but achievable with sustained support. Ukraine's counteroffensives in places like Kharkiv and Kherson added further proof of its strategic brilliance. These operations relied on deception, speed, and coordination. By misleading Russian forces into expecting attacks in the south, Ukraine prepared a lightning, fast push in the northeast that collapsed entire sections of Russian defenses. The liberation of thousands of square kilometers in a matter of days showcased the level of planning and precision Ukraine had achieved. Russia, meanwhile, found itself struggling with manpower, morale, and logistics. Its decision to mobilize reserve troops revealed the depth of its difficulties. Mobilized soldiers lacked training, proper equipment, and motivation. Ukraine's forces, in contrast, continued to gain experience, improve tactics, and integrate new technologies supplied by international partners. The precision strikes on Russian supply lines, rail networks, command posts, and ammunition depots further weakened Russia's ability to sustain large-scale operations. Drones, long-range artillery, and highly coordinated intelligence sharing created a battlefield environment Russia struggled to adapt to. Every new Ukrainian strike demonstrated that Russia no longer had uncontested control over occupied territories. The strategic use of maritime operations, especially in the Black Sea, further exposed Putin's vulnerabilities. Ukraine's innovative use of naval drones put Russia's fleet at risk, undermining Moscow's image as a dominant regional navy. This forced Russia to retreat from strategic positions and rethink its naval strategy entirely. Once again, Ukraine leveraged innovation to offset Russia's conventional advantages. Perhaps one of the most significant consequences of Ukraine's successful strategy is how it reshaped global geopolitics. NATO became more united than at any time since the Cold War. European nations accelerated defense modernization, energy diversification, and intelligence cooperation. Russia's attempt to divide the West backfired, creating the opposite effect. Stronger alliances, expanded membership, and deeper shared strategic goals. Ukraine's success also redefined modern warfare. It showed how smaller, adaptive, technologically agile forces can defeat larger ones through superior strategy, intelligence, and innovation. It proved the power of moral conviction, national unity, and international solidarity in resisting aggression. These lessons will likely influence military planning around the world for decades. Putin's original vision for the war depended on speed, intimidation, and political collapse. None of these occurred. Instead, Ukraine achieved the opposite by maintaining political cohesion, executing smart battlefield tactics, and cultivating widespread global support. Every phase of the conflict demonstrated how flawed the Kremlin's assumptions were. Russia underestimated Ukraine's resilience, underestimated Western unity, and overestimated its own capabilities. Ukraine's leadership also deserves recognition for consistently anticipating Russian moves. Whether it was predicting offensives, preparing defensive lines, or identifying vulnerabilities in enemy formations, Ukrainian commanders demonstrated remarkable strategic insight. Their ability to blend traditional military practices with modern digital warfare marked a turning point in military history. The war also revealed major structural problems in Russia's military. Corruption hollowed out procurement systems. Training standards were outdated. Communication between units was unreliable. Decision-making was slow, centralized, and political. These flaws magnified every defeat and amplified every Ukrainian success. Ukraine didn't just win battles. It exploited systemic weaknesses that Russia could not fix quickly. Another key factor in Ukraine's strategic advantage was its mastery of drone warfare. The widespread use of small, inexpensive drones transformed reconnaissance and targeting. Ukraine could locate Russian units almost instantly, directing artillery with precision that Russia could rarely match. This innovation neutralized much of Russia's traditional artillery advantage and reshaped how both sides approached battlefield movement. Cyber operations were another front where Ukraine excelled. With assistance from global partners, Ukraine safeguarded critical infrastructure, disrupted Russian communications, and maintained digital stability. Moscow expected to cripple Ukraine's internet and energy systems early in the war, but Ukraine's defensive cybersecurity measures proved far stronger than anticipated. Even Russian domestic dynamics shifted as the war continued. Casualties mounted, economic pressures grew, and internal dissent began to surface. Ukraine's steady resistance forced Putin to escalate politically risky measures, such as mobilization, crackdowns, and military reshuffling. Each move exposed deeper problems within Russian governance and undermined the aura of control the Kremlin tried to project. Ukraine's diplomacy also played a strategic role. Throughout the conflict, Ukrainian officials maintained constant engagement with global leaders, securing financial assistance, humanitarian support, and military aid. This sustained diplomatic effort prevented fatigue from developing too early among international partners. It kept Ukraine's struggle at the center of global attention, reinforcing the narrative that the world had a stake in resisting aggression. As the conflict evolved, Ukraine continued to adapt. Their strategies became more coordinated, more precise, and more technologically advanced. Russian forces became more defensive, more fragmented, and more reactive. The momentum shifted in ways few would have predicted in the early days of the invasion. Putin's broader geopolitical goals also collapsed. Instead of pulling Ukraine into Russia's sphere of influence, the war pushed it firmly toward Europe. Instead of weakening NATO, he strengthened it. Instead of enhancing Russia's status, he isolated it internationally. Every strategic objective Moscow set out to achieve ended in the opposite result. Ukraine's strategic masterstroke was not a single action, but a combination of resilience, intelligence, adaptability, unity, and global support. It was the ability to take a devastating situation and turn it into an opportunity to reshape national identity, strengthen democratic institutions, and forge stronger alliances. It was proof that even facing overwhelming odds, a nation can outmaneuver a stronger adversary through superior planning and unwavering determination. The collapse of Putin's plans did not happen overnight. It was a gradual unraveling driven by smart decisions, bold strategies, and a clear understanding of the battlefield's evolving realities. Ukraine's story is one of courage, strategic brilliance, and the refusal to surrender to intimidation. It has rewritten the geopolitical landscape and changed how nations think about security, alliances, and resistance. Ukraine's strategic triumph continues to influence global politics. The world watches as the conflict evolves, but the fundamental shift has already taken place. Ukraine proved that a smaller nation could stand against a major military power and defy expectations. It demonstrated how modern warfare is no longer defined solely by numbers, but by strategy, innovation, and national unity. As we reflect on this dramatic transformation, it's clear that Ukraine's achievements will be studied for years. Analysts will continue to examine how the nation's resilience undermined Russia's early war strategy, how information warfare reshaped global perception, and how Ukraine's military outmaneuvered a much larger invader. The lessons drawn from this conflict will influence future military doctrines and geopolitical strategies. Today, Ukraine stands not only as a nation defending its sovereignty, but also as a powerful example of strategic excellence. Putin's plans did not collapse because of a single defeat, but because Ukraine outplayed, outsmarted, and outlasted a strategy built on faulty assumptions. The war is far from over, but the strategic landscape has already shifted irreversibly. Thank you for watching and for joining me in this deep look at how Ukraine's strategy reshaped the conflict. If you found this analysis insightful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share so more people can join the discussion. Stay tuned for more detailed breakdowns and updates on global events.